For years, my siblings humiliated me and didn't invite me to their weddings, so I also set a boundary and didn't invite them to my wedding. What happened next? They exploded with rage. Hey, I'm Avery, the youngest out of 5 kids. My siblings, Brandon, Dylan, Haley, and Logan, were all so much older than me that most of the time it honestly felt like I belonged to some other family. By the time I was old enough to actually remember anything, they were already off living their lives, heading to college, moving out, getting jobs. I always felt like this random afterthought, like I was just this little extra they had to deal with. Even with all that though, I really loved them. When you're the baby of the family, your older brothers and sisters seem like actual superheroes. I thought Brandon pretty much hung the moon when I was a kid. He was the classic cool older brother who could do no wrong in my eyes. Dylan was the quieter, more serious type, but I looked up to him just the same. Haley was the big sister I dreamed about. I always hoped she'd let me into her world and teach me how to be like her. And Logan, being the youngest of the older group, was the one closest to my age. I figured if anyone would bond with me, it'd be him. But even Logan kept me at a distance. The first time it really hit me that I didn't mean much to them was at Brandon's wedding. I was 11 years old at the time, that weird age where you feel like you're old enough to be part of grown-up stuff, but still young enough that people treat you like a little kid. When Brandon and his fiancée, Brooke, announced they were having a child-free wedding, I didn't even think for a second that it meant me. I mean, come on, I wasn't some random kid who'd throw a tantrum or cause a scene. I was his sister. I still remember how excited I was. I even asked my mom if I could borrow one of her necklaces for the big day. That's when she sat me down and broke the news. Brandon and Brooke are having an adults-only wedding, Emily. You're not going to be able to come. I just stared at her, trying to wrap my head around it. But I'm not like other kids, I said, practically begging. I'll be really quiet, I promise. She just patted me on the head like I was some puppy and said, it's just for adults, sweetie. You'll understand when you're older. But honestly, I didn't understand at all. I spent hours crying alone in my room that day. Brandon was my brother. I wanted to be there for his big moment. I wanted to watch Brooke, who already felt like family to me, walk down the aisle. But instead of being there, I got left behind with a babysitter. I remember staring at the clock that day, trying to picture what was happening, wishing I could be there instead of stuck at home. When Brandon got back from his honeymoon, part of me hoped he'd bring it up, maybe say he was sorry I missed it, or at least tell me some funny story from the wedding. But he didn't. It was like none of it even happened, like I wasn't even part of it. A couple of years later, when Dylan got engaged, I was 13 by then. I figured things had to be different this time. I was older, quieter, super well-behaved. I didn't whine or make a fuss about anything. I went out of my way to prove I was mature. So when I heard they were planning a child-free wedding again, I thought, okay, but surely they'll make an exception for me this time. Nope. I got the same old speech. Dylan and his fiancée want an adults-only wedding, Emily. It's not personal, they said. Not personal? It sure felt personal. How could it not feel personal when it happened to me twice? This time, I held back the tears. I wanted to act grown up about it. I didn't beg, I didn't yell. I just sat there quietly while my parents tried to explain it away. My mom even tried to cheer me up, saying, you'll have your own wedding one day and it'll be amazing. You'll see. But it didn't make me feel any better. In fact, it just made things even clearer. My siblings didn't see me as real family, at least not the way I saw them. When Haley got engaged, I was 16, deep into my teenage years and more desperate than ever to feel included. At first, Haley didn't even plan on banning kids from her wedding. She wanted a big celebration where everyone could come. But, of course, the rest of the family had to chime in. My aunts and uncles kept going on about how refreshing it was to have weddings without kids running around and how children made everything so chaotic. Eventually, Haley gave in. The new rule? No one under 17. I was 16, so close, and man, it felt like getting punched in the gut. I worked up the nerve to ask Haley directly. Can I just be an exception? I begged. I'm your sister. I swear I'll be quiet. Haley gave me the serious, almost guilty look and said, if I make an exception for you, what about all the other kids? It wouldn't be fair. Fair? Seriously? I completely lost it. I started shouting, it's not fair that I'm not allowed at any of your weddings. I'm not just some random kid, I'm your sister. That's when my parents had to step in. I ended up getting grounded for 5 whole months after that blow-up with Haley. 5 months, just for disrespecting her and causing drama. Most of that time, I spent holed up in my room, stewing in all the anger and hurt that had been building up inside me. By the time Logan got engaged, I was 18, and honestly, I didn't even bother asking if I'd be invited. I already knew how it was going to go. And sure enough, when the announcement came, it was the same story. Another child-free wedding. At that point, I was just numb. I didn't cry, didn't throw a fit, didn't even ask for a reason. I just swallowed it and moved on. But you know what really stung? My cousin Paige, who had just turned 19, got an invite. I found out through the family grapevine. Apparently, they decided 19 was the magic number that made you worthy of attending. The irony wasn't lost on me. Paige was only a few months older than me, but she made the cut simply because she hit that so-called adult milestone. When my parents later asked why I didn't make a big deal out of congratulating Logan, I just shrugged it off. I shot him a quick text, something like, "Congrats, hope it's an amazing day," and then, like always, I locked myself away in my room. By that point, I had started to check out emotionally. I came to realize that to them I wasn't really a sister. I was just some kid they barely thought about. And man, it hurt. It hurt way more than I let on. The years started rolling by after that last wedding, and little by little, I stopped trying to wedge myself into their lives. I was just so tired. Tired of being the odd one out. Tired of being the kid's sister who didn't matter unless it was convenient for someone else. By the time I met my fiancé, Connor, I had pretty much emotionally detached from my family. At that point, I honestly didn't expect anything from them anymore. Connor was the first person who really sat down and listened when I opened up about all of it. I remember sitting on his couch, telling him how I had been banned from all 4 of my siblings' weddings. The look on his face, pure shock. "Wait, they didn't invite you? Not even when you were, like, 16? He asked, wide-eyed. "Nope," I said, trying to laugh it off like it didn't still sting. Connor just shook his head, sitting there in disbelief. "That's seriously messed up," he said after a moment. And that was kind of the moment it really hit me how messed up it actually was. I'd spent so many years convincing myself it was normal. Child-free weddings sounded reasonable on the surface, right? It wasn't like they were targeting me personally, or so I told myself. But when you look at it 4 times, not one sibling thought, "Hey, maybe Avery should be there." Not once. That wasn't normal. That wasn't okay. So when Connor and I got engaged a few years later, I knew one thing for absolute certain. My wedding was going to be different. I wanted to be surrounded by people who truly loved me, people who wanted to be there for me, not just people who showed up because they felt obligated. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't inviting my siblings. And it wasn't some dramatic, rage-fueled moment either. I didn't send out a nasty email or blow up the family group chat. I just quietly left them off the guest list. Simple as that. I knew it would eventually cause a scene, but I figured I'd deal with it when the time came. The first signs of trouble popped up about 3 months before the wedding. One afternoon, out of the blue, my mom called way too chipper for it to be a normal conversation. I should have known something was brewing. "So, Emily," she said in that syrupy sweet voice she only used when she wanted something, "how are the wedding plans coming along?" "Good," I answered carefully. "Almost everything's done." "That's wonderful," she said, and then there was this little pause before she casually added, "Your brothers and sister haven't gotten their invitations yet. Did you send them out already?" My heart started pounding. I really didn't want to have this conversation yet. "Yeah, I sent them," I said, trying to sound casual. She didn't even hesitate. "Well, they didn't get one. Maybe it got lost in the mail?" I sighed heavily. "Mom, I didn't invite them." Dead silence on the other end. Just this heavy, stunned pause. Then came the explosion. "What? Emily, how could you not invite your own family? Your siblings? What's wrong with you?" I gripped the phone tighter and forced myself to stay calm. "They didn't invite me to their weddings, Mom," I said quietly. "Not a single one of them. I'm just returning the favor. Seems fair to me." She sounded like I had just confessed to some unforgivable crime. "That was different," she snapped. "You were young. They didn't mean to hurt you." I let out a bitter laugh. Well, it hurt, whether they meant to or not, and I was done pretending like it didn't. Right away, my mom dove headfirst into the guilt trip. "Emily, you're just being spiteful. Family is family, you don't just shut them out like this. What are people going to think?" And there it was. What will people think? My mom's favorite worry in the whole world. I cut her off before she could get any further. "I don't care what people think, Mom. This is my wedding. I'm only inviting the people who actually care about me. They didn't care enough to include me in their big days, so why on earth should they be at mine?" She hung up on me after that. Didn't even surprise me. That night, the family group chat absolutely blew up. Haley, fake as ever, kicked things off. "Hey Avies, did something happen with the mail? We never got our invites." Then Dylan chimed in, straight to the point. "What's going on? Why aren't we invited?" I stared at my phone for what felt like forever, trying to decide if I should answer. Part of me wanted to just let it all out, tell them exactly how much they'd hurt me over the years. But honestly, The bigger part of me knew it wouldn't matter. They'd never gotten it before. They weren't going to get it now. So I didn't reply. I just left the messages sitting there on read. At dinner, Connor noticed how quiet I was and asked what was wrong. I handed him my phone without saying a word. He scrolled through the messages, shook his head, and said, "You don't owe them anything, Avies. They made their choices." "Yeah, but—" I started, my voice trailing off. "They're gonna make me look like the bad guy. I just know it." "Let them," he said, not even hesitating. "You know the truth. That's all that matters." The next day, my parents showed up at my apartment, no warning, just pounding on the door like it was some emergency. I didn't even have to ask what they were there for. The second I opened the door, my mom barged in, full fury mode. "What are you thinking, Emily? Not inviting your own siblings to your wedding? What kind of person does that?" I took a deep breath, trying like hell to stay calm even though my patience was wearing thin. "Mom," I said, steady as I could, "I told you. They didn't think I was important enough to include in their weddings, so I'm not including them in mine." That's when my dad jumped in, his voice sharp and disapproving. "You're being childish, Emily. You're holding on to things that happened years ago." And that's where I snapped. "I was a child when they did it, Dad." I shouted. I begged to be part of their weddings and every single one of them shut me out. My voice broke a little. "Don't you dare talk to me about being childish. I was the one left crying at home. 4 times. They didn't have an answer for that. My mom looked like she might cry, but I didn't let her guilt me this time. "You can defend them all you want," I said, my voice shaking, "but I'm not changing my mind. If they actually cared about me, they would have shown it when it counted." My parents left after that, furious, frustrated, and totally unwilling to hear me. Over the next few days, the messages from my siblings just kept getting nastier. Dylan flat out called me selfish. Haley told me I was tearing the family apart. And Logan? He didn't even bother sugarcoating it. "You're being petty, Emily. Grow up." I didn't respond to a single one of them. I didn't owe them an explanation anymore. One night, while I was scrolling through all the nasty texts, Connor came up behind me, wrapped his arms around me, and said, "I'm proud of you, for standing up for yourself." And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt proud of myself too. After that first round of drama, I honestly thought things would calm down. I figured they'd grumble among themselves for a bit, maybe complain to some distant cousins, and eventually just move on. That was usually the way my family handled stuff when they didn't get what they wanted. But man, I really underestimated how big of a deal they were going to make this. It started small at first. Haley, who else, couldn't resist throwing some passive-aggressive shade on Facebook. "Family is forever," she posted, even when some people forget what that word really means. I rolled my eyes so hard it practically hurt. Sitting next to me, Connor saw the post and shook his head. "What is she, like 14, he said. "Basically," I muttered, trying to brush it off. I told myself it didn't matter. I knew the truth. I wasn't doing anything wrong. But still, it got under my skin. It's hard not to feel the sting when your own sister takes public shots at you like that. And it didn't stop there. Over the next few days, the jabs started showing up in the extended family group chat too. I had muted the chat ages ago for my sanity, but Connor checked his phone one afternoon and said, Emily, you might want to see this." The messages were flying. "Haley, it's so sad when family lets petty grudges ruin everything. Dylan, I just don't understand. I thought we were better than this." And then good old Brandon, the eldest, who always acted like he knew best, decided to chime in. "I never realized how much bitterness you've been holding onto, Emily. It's really sad, Emily. You're throwing away family over something that happened years ago." I just sat there, staring at the screen, feeling my blood start to boil. They still didn't get it. After all this time, they still acted like I was making a mountain out of a molehill, like they hadn't spent my whole childhood treating me like an afterthought. I wanted to fire back. I wanted to type out every single thing they'd done, lay it all out in black and white, and force them to see just how hypocritical they were being. But I knew better. If I tried to argue, they'd just twist my words around, make it seem like I was dramatic or unstable or whatever excuse they needed to avoid taking responsibility. So instead, I did the one thing they never would have expected. I left the group chat. That night, my mom called. I knew the second I picked up that she already heard about it because she skipped right over hello and went straight into yelling. "Emily, what is wrong with you?" "Hi, Mom," I said flatly. "Don't start with that attitude," she snapped. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Your siblings are heartbroken." "Heartbroken?" I laughed bitter and hollow. "They ignored me my entire childhood, but now they're heartbroken? Give me a break." "You're being so spiteful," she said, her voice sharp. "You've always been like this, holding on to grudges and making everything about you." And that's when I lost it. I'm the one holding grudges? I fired back. Mom, I was 10 when Brandon got married. 10. I cried because I just wanted to be there, and you all made it clear I wasn't important enough. And it didn't just happen once. It happened over and over again. I begged to go to Haley's wedding, and she told me no because it wouldn't be fair. That was a long time ago, she said, brushing it off like it was nothing. Yeah, well, guess what? I'm still living with how it made me feel, I shot back. You all decided back then that I didn't matter. So why do you think you deserve a front row seat to my life now? She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she tried to spin it into something else. This isn't about the weddings, Emily. This is about you pushing everyone away because you're bitter. Connor's probably putting these ideas in your head, isn't he? I groaned, exhausted. Mom, stop blaming Connor. This has nothing to do with him. This is about me finally realizing I deserve better than to be treated like I don't matter. Her tone shifted, then softer, playing the concerned mother card. Emily, you don't understand, she said. Family is all you'll have in the end. Friends and partners come and go, but family is forever. No, I said, my voice firm. Family is supposed to care about you. They're supposed to love you, support you. That's not what you've been to me. She started crying big dramatic sobs that, honestly, felt more like a guilt trip than real sadness. You'll regret this one day, Emily, she sobbed. You'll see. I don't think I will, I said quietly, and then I hung up. Things just kept getting uglier after that. I blocked Haley and Dylan on social media because I couldn't take the nonstop passive-aggressive comments anymore. My mom even tried calling Connor twice, probably hoping he'd talk some sense into me. He didn't even bother picking up. Then Brandon sent me this long, dramatic email, an actual email preaching about forgiveness and family unity. He even threw in a Bible verse about letting go of anger for good measure. I didn't respond to that either. One night, Connor and I were sitting on the couch and I just vented. It's like they're determined to make me the bad guy. They don't see how messed up it is that they ignored me for years, but now they're freaking out because I finally stood up for myself. You know what it is? Connor said, looking at me seriously. They're not mad because they didn't get invited. They're mad because they don't get to control you anymore. That hit me like a punch right in the gut. He was right. My whole life, my family had treated me like some extra they could ignore whenever it was convenient for them. And now that I was doing something on my own, something they couldn't control, they were losing it. They'll get over it eventually, I said, though honestly, I wasn't sure I believed it. Connor just looked at me and said something that stuck with me. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. Either way, it's not your problem. He was right. For the first time in my life, I realized I didn't owe them anything. Not my time. Not my energy. And definitely not an invitation to my wedding. About a week later, my dad sent me a short, heavy-handed text. Emily, your mom isn't doing well. She's really upset about all of this. Maybe you could rethink this. I just sat there, staring at the message for what felt like forever before finally typing out a reply. She really should have thought about all that before she spent years pretending I didn't exist. I hit send without a second thought and then immediately blocked the number. For the first time in what felt like forever, I actually felt free. The weeks leading up to my wedding were the strange cocktail of pure excitement and a low hum of tension buzzing underneath. Part of me was beyond excited to finally marry Connor, to have the kind of day I'd been dreaming about since I was a little girl. But the other part couldn't ignore the drama with my family that still hung around like a bad smell I couldn't get rid of. My parents had pretty much stopped reaching out, probably because I blocked my mom's number after her last meltdown, but that didn't stop others from trying. Out of nowhere, my aunt gave me a call. I hadn't heard a peep from her in years, so the second her name lit up my screen, I knew something was up. Still, I answered and she wasted no time getting straight to the point. Emily, sweetheart, I just don't understand why you're making such a fuss about all this, she said, her voice sugary sweet but dripping with that condescending tone. Family is family. You can't just leave your siblings out of your wedding. I squeezed the phone tighter in my hand and let out a heavy sigh. Aunt Diane, this isn't just about the wedding, I said firmly. This has been building for years. I'm not changing my mind, I added, shutting down any hope she had. But it's family, she insisted, like just saying the word was supposed to magically fix everything. I'm sure they didn't mean to hurt you back then. Can't you just let it go and be the bigger person? She added, practically pleading. I closed my eyes, doing everything I could not to lose it. Being the bigger person doesn't mean letting people treat you like dirt. It means knowing when you've had enough and finally choosing yourself. There was a long pause on her end before she let out this big, dramatic sigh. Well, she said, I just hope you don't regret this someday. Family might not be there when you miss them. I didn't bother replying. I just hung up. The morning of the wedding, I woke up feeling this weird mix of calm and nerves. It wasn't the usual what if everything goes wrong kind of anxiety. It felt more like I was bracing myself for something bad to happen. Even though I knew my family wasn't invited, I couldn't shake the feeling that they'd find some way to crash the day anyway. But Connor, being the incredible man he is, refused to let me spiral. When I shared my worries with him while we were getting ready separately, he just smiled and said, "Today is about us. Nothing else matters. If anyone even tries to mess with it, I'll walk them out myself." That made me laugh, a real, genuine laugh, and for the first time in weeks, the weight on my chest felt a little lighter. The venue we picked was everything I ever wanted. A small, cozy garden blooming with flowers everywhere, twinkle lights wrapped through the trees, and a sweet little gazebo where we'd exchange vows. I never wanted some giant, over-the-top wedding. I just wanted something simple and real, something that was bursting with love, and that's exactly what it turned out to be. My closest friends were there, along with a few family members who had actually been decent over the years. It just felt right. Standing in front of the mirror, fixing the last little details of my dress, my maid of honor, and my best friend Kelsey walked in with a big grin. "You look incredible," she said. "Thanks," I whispered back, feeling a tidal wave of emotions starting to build. Kelsey plopped down on the couch, studying me for a moment. "You good?" she asked. I hesitated before giving a small nod. "Yeah, I don't know. Sad, I guess. Not about today," I added quickly. "Today's perfect. Just about the fact that my family isn't here." She frowned and leaned in closer. "Emily, it's okay to feel that way. Making the right choice doesn't mean it won't still hurt," she said softly. Her words hit me right in the chest. I turned to look at her, tears burning the back of my eyes. I just wanted them to care, you know? To fight for me when I was a kid, and they never did, I admitted, my voice breaking a little. Kelsey stood up and pulled me into a hug. "You don't need their approval," she whispered. "You've got people who truly love you. Focus on that." I nodded and sucked in a deep breath. She was right. Today wasn't about the people who let me down. It was about me and Connor. When the ceremony started, the beauty of it all completely swept me away. All the noise, all the hurt, it just faded into the background. I stood there at the end of the aisle, locking eyes with Connor, and thought, this is it. This is real happiness. As I made my way toward him, it was like this huge, heavy weight just lifted off my shoulders. I wasn't the forgotten little sister anymore. I wasn't the kid begging to be included and getting shoved aside. Now, I was a bride, standing there surrounded by people who actually loved me and wanted nothing more than to see me happy. Our vows couldn't have been more perfect. Connor promised to love me, protect me, and stand by my side no matter what, and I made the same promise right back. By the time we said I do, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. Mine included. The reception turned out to be everything I'd ever hoped for. We laughed until our sides hurt, stuffed ourselves with amazing food, and danced until we could barely feel our feet. My friends raised their glasses to us, telling hilarious stories and sharing heartfelt wishes for the life ahead. Connor's parents, who had always made me feel like part of the family, told me how proud they were to officially call me their daughter-in-law. At one point, I slipped away from the crowd, just needing a moment to take it all in. I stood at the edge of the garden watching the twinkle lights hanging from the trees and the sound of laughter floating through the air, and I felt completely full in the best way. For so long, I believed the lies my family drilled into my head. That I didn't matter. That I wasn't important enough to be part of their world. But standing there, seeing all those faces lit up with genuine love for me, it finally clicked. I mattered. And I mattered to the people who actually deserved to know me. Later that night, when the party was starting to wind down, one of my cousins pulled me aside. "Hey, Emily," she said, a little awkward. "I probably shouldn't tell you this, but..." I let out a groan. "What now?" She looked guilty. "Your mom and Haley apparently threw some kind of dinner tonight. Like, as a replacement for your wedding." I stared at her for a second, then just burst out laughing. "Are you serious?" She nodded, looking embarrassed. "I know. It's pathetic. I just thought you should know." I shook my head, still laughing. "That's fine. Let them throw their little pity party. I hope the food's good." I could tell she thought I'd be upset, but honestly, I wasn't. If anything, it was just more proof I'd made the right call. My family had spent my entire life shutting me out and trying to make me feel like it was somehow my fault. Now that I was the one drawing the line, they didn't know how to handle it. At the very end of the night, Connor and I shared one last dance with all our loved ones gathered around us. As we swayed together, I looked up at him and whispered, "I'm so happy we did this." He smiled down at me and said, "Me too, Avies. This is just the beginning." And for the first time, I really believed it. My family wasn't there. They didn't get to witness the best day of my life. But that wasn't my loss. It was theirs. Because as I looked around the room, surrounded by laughter and love, I realized something even bigger. I had everything I'd ever needed and none of it had come from them. I honestly thought the worst of it was over after the wedding. I really did. The day had been so perfect, even better than I had dreamed, and I truly felt like I had finally moved on from all the drama. I didn't miss them. Not once. I didn't waste a single second wondering how it would have been if they were there. I had my people. And that was enough. But if there's one thing I've learned about my family, it's that they hate being ignored. It's almost like they couldn't stand the idea that I was happy without them. So of course, they had to stir up trouble one more time. It started about a week after the wedding when Haley sent me a message. Of course, it had to be Haley. She was always the one to throw the first stone whenever family drama needed a little nudge. Saw some pics from your wedding, her message said. Can't believe you had it in a garden. Looked casual, but I guess that's what you wanted. I stared at the screen stunned. She couldn't even pretend to be nice. She just had to find something to tear down. I was tempted to shoot back a snarky reply, something about how maybe her wedding had been fancier, but at least mine wasn't packed full of fake smiles and people who didn't really give a damn about me. But I stopped myself. She didn't deserve a response. She wasn't worth it. A few days later, more messages started trickling in from random extended family members I hadn't heard from in forever. Turns out Haley, Brandon, and Dylan had decided to go on some kind of crusade to make me look like the villain. My Aunt Diane, yep, the same one who tried to guilt-trip me before the wedding, sent me another message. Emily, I don't know what happened between you and your siblings, but they're really hurt. Haley says she tried to reach out and you're just ignoring her. Maybe it's time to let go of the past. I let out a heavy sigh and rolled my eyes. How many times did I have to explain myself? How many people did my siblings need to drag into their mess before they finally got it through their heads that I wasn't budging? Connor must have picked up on how frustrated I was because he came over and sat down next to me. Another guilt trip? He asked, glancing at my phone. Yeah, I said, tossing it on the coffee table. Aunt Diane again. She says they're hurt. He let out a snort. Hurt because they can't control you anymore. I smiled faintly. He wasn't wrong. I just don't get it, I said quietly. They ignored me for years. I spent half my childhood begging them to let me be part of their lives, and now, all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy for setting a boundary. That's how it always goes, Connor said gently. When you start protecting yourself, the people who hurt you are the first ones to cry about it. He was right. Deep down, I knew it. But the real low point came a few days later when my mom showed up at our door unannounced. It was a lazy Saturday afternoon. Connor and I were still in our pajamas, messing around in the kitchen, laughing over a batch of burnt pancakes. Then there was a knock and my heart sank. I just knew it was her. Sure enough, I opened the door and there she was, my mom, standing there with that same dramatic look she always wore when she wanted something. Emily, she said, her voice dripping with disappointment, we need to talk. I sighed, already exhausted. Mom, now's not a good time. She didn't care. She pushed the door open a little, trying to step inside like she owned the place. Connor appeared behind me, quietly laying his hand on my shoulder, steady and solid. Emily, please, she said, ignoring him. This has gone far enough. Your siblings are devastated. Devastated? Like I was supposed to feel guilty over that. Do you really think this is how families are supposed to act? She demanded. I clenched my jaw, keeping my voice steady and calm. You don't get to show up here and lecture me, Mom. I invited the people who cared about me to my wedding. They didn't make the cut, and that's on them, not me. Her face shifted into that all-too-familiar look of shock, like she couldn't wrap her head around the idea that I wasn't backing down. You don't mean that, she said, almost pleading now. They love you, Emily. They're your family. No, Mom, I said firmly, my voice steady. Family doesn't make you feel small. Family doesn't shut you out when you're a kid and then show up years later demanding a place in your life when it's convenient for them. I spent my whole life trying to prove I mattered to them. And they never cared. I'm done. For once, she didn't have a quick comeback. She just stood there blinking, stunned into silence. I could tell she wanted to argue, but Connor stepped in before she could get the words out. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't have to. His calm strength said it all. I think it's time for you to leave, he said quietly. My mom glanced between the two of us, her face a tangled mess of anger and sadness. You'll regret this, she said finally, her voice dropping into something almost soft. You'll miss us one day. And we won't be there. I met her eyes without flinching. No, Mom, I said. I won't. Connor gently closed the door behind her. And for a long moment I just stood there, trying to catch my breath. I thought I'd feel guilty. But I didn't. I felt relief. The next day, a text from Dylan popped up on my phone. Mom said she came to talk to you and you slammed the door in her face. Real mature, Emily. You've turned into someone I don't even recognize. I read the message aloud to Connor, who just shook his head. Block him, he said. You don't need that. So I did. One by one, I blocked every sibling, every relative who thought guilt-tripping me was gonna work. And in that moment, I realized something really important. I didn't owe them anything. Not my time. Not my energy. Not even an explanation. They had spent years making me feel invisible. Now, I was finally taking control. The weeks that followed were the quietest I could ever remember. Without the constant messages, the passive-aggressive comments, the manipulation. I could finally breathe. Connor and I threw ourselves into married life, decorating our little apartment, making plans for the future, just enjoying each other. One night, we were curled up on the couch, watching some cheesy movie when Connor turned to me and asked, "Do you regret it at all? Not having them at the wedding?" I thought about it for a second, then shook my head. No, I said. I thought maybe I would, but I don't. I spent so long chasing their approval, and for what? I don't miss them. I don't miss feeling like I'm never enough. He smiled and squeezed my hand. Good. You deserve better. And he was right. I did deserve better. About 2 months after the wedding, I got one last message. This time, it came from Haley's number, but it was a different phone since I'd already blocked her. You've destroyed this family, Emily. I hope you're happy. I stared at the screen for a second, then deleted the message without a second thought. I didn't even feel angry anymore. I just felt done. Because the truth was, I was happy. For the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing anyone's approval. I wasn't begging for scraps of love and attention. I was surrounded by people who loved me for exactly who I was. And that was enough.